Hi, welcome back to Examining Life, a life that's worth living. My name is Amanda. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's Wisdom Wednesday. First, I want to thank everyone who has subscribed. Thank you very much. And I know I have some new subscribers, so welcome. And if you haven't already, please go ahead and click the red rectangle to subscribe. I also want to thank my patrons. Thank you very much for your donations. I greatly appreciate your support. If you're new to my channel, I have a philosophy channel where I travel and ask individuals from around the world various philosophy-related questions. My goal with my channel is to see how they're answered across different cultures. And on Wednesdays, I host Wisdom Wednesday, where I choose a quote by a philosopher and analyze the wisdom behind that quote. I am currently in Paris, so my recent episodes have been quotes by French philosophers. And today's Wisdom Wednesday quote is a question that Derrida poses in On Cosmopolitanism and Forgiveness. In this work, Derrida discusses political views in Europe in the early 2000s as they relate to immigration. He proposes that hospitality is necessary to have successful cities of refuge, but he also acknowledges the clash between nationalism and the acceptance of newcomers. I typically do not discuss politics on my channel, but I will try to do so respectfully in regards to this quote. And today's quote is, quote, "How can the hosts and guests of cities of refuge be helped to recreate, through work and creative activity, a living and durable network in new places, and occasionally in a new language?" End quote. And I picked this quote because I think it's a very important question to ask, especially during a time when hate speech and discrimination are very prevalent. Although Derrida was discussing examples in Europe in his writing, I will be analyzing this quote through the modern-day American perspective. First, I think he makes an important distinction between guests and hosts. When given these roles, perspective shifts and seems to imply a certain standard of behavior for both parties. To put it simply, a host should provide hospitality and being genuinely welcoming, and a guest should be respectful. I believe we do not exactly have this mindset in the US when it comes to immigration, and this is definitely because of many different reasons, but I think one of the reasons is due to our interpretation or concept of time. I would say a guest implies a shorter amount of time, but an immigrant, refugee, or asylum seeker, which is what Derrida is discussing in this work, implies moving somewhere for many years and probably a lifetime. Now, to some degree, regardless of how long someone is living in a place, individuals who were already living in a given city should act with hospitality to welcome and help integrate immigrants into the society, at least in theory. And yes, immigrants should be respectful of their new home, again, in theory. However, in reality, there may be a disconnect to these roles by both parties for many reasons. An obvious reason is the language barrier. It's difficult to connect with individuals with whom you cannot have a conversation and find a common ground. Another reason is the fact that the US is a very individualistic society, so there isn't an incentive to go out of your way to really help anyone, maybe with the exception of your family and close friends. And obviously, for someone who just moved there, you haven't developed a close friendship because they're new. And yes, of course, I do realize that there are individuals who do help or have helping roles in society, and just individuals who genuinely like to help people. I'm not saying that those individuals don't exist, but in general, across the United States, I would say, because of our individualistic culture, the incentive to just help someone who's new to our country is not necessarily something that we do. But that's not to say that there aren't individuals who do that, because there are. Now, on paper, ethically, it looks nice to say we should do these things, such as, mentioned in the quote, recreating a living and durable network. But how do we form a society where the give and take is mutually beneficial and effectively implemented? This said network would have to provide equally valuable support for both Americans and the immigrants, if this were to be effective on a societal level. Furthermore, having a solid network is important at any time in life, but especially when individuals have experienced traumatic events which have forced them to leave their home, especially against their will. In this new transition, there are many elements that force one out of his or her comfort zone while moving and integrating into a new society. Having a network can provide support through that process. Derrida mentions that creating this network will take work and creative activity. I agree that building a city of refuge will take both. I think also building friendships that they can talk to and relate to and have some resemblance of a normal life. And in terms of building a network, I do have these questions. How would we build this network in society to provide the hospitality needed for newcomers? Who needs to be in this network? How many people in general would be a part of this network? How many people would be immigrants? And how many people would be local Americans? How much effort does each member on both sides need to make in order for the network to be successful? And who would benefit from this network, and in what ways? In addition, the quote also asks how both parties can be helped to create this network. I'm assuming this would mean some form of government support, which means the government itself, either federal or local, needs to be in favor of being hospitable. This is obviously easier said than done, as it is easy to have the view that our tax dollars be spent on us. However, us can mean the greater society. And if refugees or other immigrants are part of that city or greater society and are included in the word us, then some funds should be allocated to help them integrate, which would lead to have even more productive contributors to society. I would look at these funds as an investment insofar as the investment pays off. Lastly, this part is not necessarily part of his quote, but I think it's something important that is needed to be mentioned in regards to both sides of the perspective of the host and the guest. There should be an avenue within this network for all members to make decisions in various processes. Both the host and the guest should have the free will to make certain decisions, as this will give them a certain sense of control and willingness to invest in each other. And say from the perspective of a refugee or an asylum seeker, it is one thing to move someplace because you want to go, but it is another thing to be relocated when the relocation itself and or the exact place where one is relocated to is not the choice of the person themselves. When someone goes someplace that they want to go or go to willingly, they are more motivated to do well, at least in theory. So the ability to make decisions is very important in this scenario, because it is not good to be or feel completely helpless. Also, sometimes not everyone wants to be helped from a pity perspective, although maybe this is the case at times. I think in general, most people would probably want to take time to accept and recover from the trauma that was experienced, and then continue with their lives and learn how to survive in their new environment. So although there is a need for the host to provide hospitality, I think the way in which it's done and their motives for doing so are also important to consider. Thank you so much for watching this week's Wisdom Wednesday. Let me know in the comments below what you think about the roles of hosts and guests in cities of refuge, and what should each person bring to the table to build their network. And please remember to subscribe, like, comment, and share. Stay tuned every Wednesday. Thank you. Happy travels. Bye.